Good afternoon. This is Kathleen Drew, Chair of the Washington State Energy Facility Site Evaluation Council, and I'm calling our October meeting to order. Ms. Owens, will you call the roll?
Department of Commerce.
Kate Kelly, present.
Department of Ecology.
Rob Dingle, present.
Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Mike Livingston, present.
Department of Natural Resources.
Lenny Young, present.
Utilities and Transportation Commission.
Stacy Brewster, present.
Local government and optional state agencies for the Goose Prairie Project, Department of Transportation.
Bill Sorial, present.
For the Horse Heaven Project, Department of Agriculture.
Here.
Benton County. Assistant Attorney General John Thompson.
John Thompson here.
Administrative Law Judge Johnette Sullivan. Adam Torum. Moving on to council staff, Sonia Bumpus.
Sonia Bumpus here.
Amy Hofkemeyer.
Amy Hofkemeyer, present.
Amy Moon.
Amy Moon here.
Kyle Overton.
Kyle Overton here.
Joe Wood.
Joe Wood, present.
Sean Chisholm.
Sean Chisholm, present.
Stu Henderson.
Stu Henderson here.
Andrea Grantham.
Andrea Grantham, present.
For operational updates, Kittitas Valley Wind.
Eric Melbardis, present.
Wild Horse Wind Power Project.
Jennifer Galbraith, present.
Grays Harbor Energy Center.
Chris Jones, present.
Chehalis Generation Facility.
Mark Miller, present. I also have with me the operations manager, Stefano Schnitger.
Thank you. Columbia Generating Station.
Marshall Schmidt, present.
Columbia Solar.
Owen Hurd, present.
Chair, there is a quorum for the regular council and for the Goose Prairie and Horse Heaven Council.
And our Council for the Environment.
Oh,
Bill
I'm
Sherman,
sorry. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Bill Sherman and Megan Salome as Council for the Environment.
Thank you.
Moving on to our proposed agenda. You have before you on the screen a proposed agenda for today's meeting. Is there a motion to adopt the proposed agenda?
Rob Dingle, motion to approve agenda.
Kate Kelly, second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The agenda is adopted. Moving on to the meeting minutes, we have two sets of minutes this month. We have the September 21st, 2021 monthly meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the September 21 monthly meeting minutes?
This is Mike Livingston. I'll move to approve the September 21st meeting minutes.
Thank you. Second?
Lenny Young, second.
Thanks. Any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the September 21, 2021 monthly meeting minutes, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Minutes are approved. Moving on to the September 27th, 2021 Goose Prairie Public Comment Meeting Minutes. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes for the Goose Prairie Public Comment Meeting?
This is Stacy Brewster. I'll move that we approve the meeting minutes from the September 27th Goose Prairie public comment meeting.
Thank you. Second,
Rob Dingle, second.
any comments or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes for the September 27th Goose Prairie public comment meeting, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Meeting minutes are approved. Moving on to the operational updates. Kittitas Valley Wind Project, Mr. Melbardis.
Good afternoon, Chair Drew, EFSEC Council and staff. For the record, this is Eric Melbardis with EDP Renewables, speaking on behalf of the Kittitas Valley Wind Power Project. We had nothing non-routine to report for the period.
Thank you. Moving on to the Wild Horse Wind Facility, Ms. Galbraith.
Yes, thank you, Chair Drew, council members and staff. For the record, this is Jennifer Galbraith with the Wild Horse Wind Facility for Puget Sound Energy. I have one update for the month of September. We had our annual Technical Advisory Committee meeting via conference call on September 28th. The TAC reviewed the results of the 5 years of monitoring sage-grouse habitat restoration efforts and voted on a motion that the alternative sage-grouse conservation measures have been achieved and no additional action and/or mitigation is recommended at this time. The TAC voted 6-1 in favor of the motion. And I believe that Kyle Overton will now present the full motion and the TAC recommendation for the council's consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Overton.
Yes, thank you. This is Kyle Overton, the site specialist for Wild Horse. So I have some additional history and background on this TAC decision that is before the council today. In 2010, the EFSEC Council voted to approve the unanimous TAC recommendation for alternate conservation measures, which would satisfy the mitigation measure requiring the installation of perch discouragers for the project. One of the alternative measures called for the identification of an appropriate location for the improvement of habitat suitable for sage-grouse nesting and brood rearing. Through an adaptive management process in 2013, a refined management plan was developed and implemented for the improvement of this habitat area. This updated restoration plan called for a 5-year monitoring requirement of the restoration area, which concluded in 2020. Subsequent to all that, a joint recommendation on the future of sage-grouse mitigation activities at the Wild Horse Project was developed by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. This recommendation is for the continuation of current mitigation practices, such as control of noxious weeds and maintaining cattle exclusion fencing. And they're listed out on the document on the screen now, those mitigation measures that are to continue. And it also calls for closing out the requirement to monitor the habitat restoration area, and also calls for the TAC to continue to coordinate if conditions surrounding sage-grouse warrant additional measures in the future. The recommendation states that based on the results of mitigation efforts, the objective of the 2010 alternative mitigation measures have been met and no further actions or mitigation measures are recommended at this time. This recommendation was presented to members of the Wild Horse TAC during the September 2021 TAC meeting, and members voted to approve adopting the measures in this recommendation and present this to the EFSEC Council for their consideration. The EFSEC Council has, the ultimate authority on adopting mitigation requirements for the project, and at this time, the Wild Horse TAC and EFSEC staff are requesting the Council to consider the recommendation on sage-grouse mitigation. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions for either Mr. Overton or Ms. Galbraith?
Chair Drew, this is Mike Livingston.
Go ahead.
I don't have a question. I just want to comment that it was very helpful to have the notes from the TAC meeting and to review the discussion that occurred during that meeting. We had two of our Fish and Wildlife employees in those discussions, including Mike Ritter, who's our renewable energy biologist, and our sage grouse specialist, Dr. Mike Schroeder, in those discussions. And so I just wanted to comment that it was helpful to have the notes and see the dialogue that went on, and I can see where their positions are for us. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you. Yes, it was very good to have the detailed information. I think it's allowed all of us to be prepared for this meeting and this action item. Are there other comments? Is there anyone who would like to make a motion?
Yeah, Chair Drew, I'm happy to make a motion. So I would move that the council approve the Technical Advisory Committee's recommendation that Puget Sound Energy has fulfilled the required restoration and monitoring for sage grouse mitigation, and that in conjunction with the ongoing mitigation measures, no additional action or mitigation is required.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Lenny Young, second.
Thank you. Any further comments or discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye. The motion is adopted. Thank you, and thanks to all who have participated in this work.
Thank you.
Next, we have Centralia Generating Facility.
Actually,
sorry, looking at the small print there from my perspective. Mr. Miller.
Good afternoon, Chair Drew, EFSEC Council and staff. This is Mark Miller, the plant manager representing the Pacific Coast Chehalis Generating Facility. I have one non-routine comment for the month of September. On September 14th, during a special meeting, the EFSEC Council approved Pacific Core's request to buy water from the city of Chehalis with a commitment to fund certain conservation measures. Following receipt of the approved resolution, the Chehalis facility began taking water on September 15th. The river returned to the above minimum flow of 165 cubic feet per second on the 19th of September. The Chehalis Generation Facility purchased 3.91 acre feet of water from the city during this low flow period. The total approved purchase per EFSEC Resolution 350 was 20 acre feet. I have been in contact with the City of Chehalis Mayor Dennis Dawes and the Director of the Chehalis Basin Partnership, Kirsten Harma, and payment to these entities as stipulated in the resolution will be completed prior to December 1st, 2021. Again, thank you for the council's attention and support. And are there any questions?
Thank you, and thank you for the correction. Are there any questions for Mr. Mark Miller from the Chehalis Generating Facility? I know it's been quite an interesting process here, and appreciate the work that everyone's put into to make this a success and ensure the right things are done for the continued operation of your facility and also for the Chehalis Basin. So thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to the Grays Harbor Energy Center, Mr. Sharon.
Chair Drew, I don't want to interrupt you, but I have a quick update on the Chehalis air permit status.
Yes, you do, Mr. Overton.
Thank you. This is
permit.
Kyle Overton again, the site specialist for the Chehalis facility. And during the September council meeting, the EFSEC council voted to approve the release of the draft air operation permit renewal documents for the Chehalis facility for a 30-day public comment period. That public comment period will run through October 22nd, and then pending any comments received, it will then be released to the EPA for a 45-day comment period, which will start on the 23rd of October and conclude on December 7th. And at this time, no comments have been received. That's the update I have for you. Are there any questions?
Thank you for the update. Any questions for Mr. Overton? Thank you. Now moving on to Grays Harbor Energy Center, Mr. Sharon.
Afternoon, Chair Drew, council members, EFSEC staff. This is Chris Sharon, plant manager from Grays Harbor Energy Center, and this month I have nothing non-routine to report.
Great. Thank you. Columbia Generating Station and WNP 1 and 4, Mr. Schmidt.
Good afternoon, Chair Drew, EFSEC council and staff. This is Marshall Schmidt reporting for Energy Northwest. I have one update. As previously reported during the last council meeting, Energy Northwest submitted a written report regarding the potential release of silicon oil to the Columbia River. And then on September 29th, Energy Northwest received a written response from EFSEC concluding that no further reporting is required regarding this event. I have no other updates for Columbia Generating Station nor Washington Nuclear Project 1 and 4.
Thank you. Columbia Solar, Mr. Hurd.
Good afternoon, Chair Drew, council members, and EFSEC staff. This is Owen Hurd from Tuso Energy reporting on the Columbia Solar projects. A brief construction status update. At Penstemon, all modules have been delivered. Installation is underway. We've just received torque tubes, which had been stuck in the Port of Seattle, but they're now being installed and interconnection work is underway. On Camas, all modules have been delivered and installation will generally follow that of Penstemon. We are still waiting on delivery of torque tubes, which a portion of them are still stuck in the Port of Seattle. On Utica, which is follows behind that, we're focusing on resolving pile refusals, which have been higher than expected, and we'll be trying some different approaches next week, including pre-drilling pilot holes. I'll be submitting an updated kind of detailed schedule as part of our quarterly update in the next week or so, but in the meantime, I'll just provide a little bit more color for the council. The timelines are very difficult to pin down right now because of this torque tube issue. They're on the critical path for completion of the projects, and as you see in the news, there's the port congestion is a big issue. So we're following up every day, but we don't have a very specific ETA. Generally, completing Penstemon is the highest priority, both because of our power purchase agreement and the fact that PSE is using a portion of the project for their community solar program. As a result, we've been borrowing equipment, including torque tubes from Utica in an effort to keep crews busy and Penstemon moving along. At the moment, we expect Penstemon to have permission to operate by end of year with final testing in January and February. Utica, which will be the last to be completed, I think we'll shooting for permission to operate by the end of Q1, and Camas will be somewhere in between the two, depending on when the torque tubes arrive. In terms of environmental compliance, we're hydroseeding this week partially hydroseeding Penstemon on this week as a means of keeping dust under control. Golder and Northwest Code have continued their ongoing inspections. Nothing there to report, and nothing to report on safety. On other items, we met with Department of Ecology and WDFW this past week to discuss planting plans, which we're working on, and that's moving along. We're also completing the operations phase reports and getting our first TAC meeting on the calendar, which we're also coordinating with EFSEC staff on. And then lastly, I just want to give you an update on the transaction with Greenbacker. Things are moving along according to plan. We're hoping to close by the end of this month or early next month. Greenbacker is currently working on the final documentation required to replace the site restoration financial assurance currently posted by TUSO with a performance guarantee, and we're continuing to work with EFSEC staff and John Thompson to get that in final form. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Sounds like a really challenging situation that you're dealing with, and uncertainty as when product's going to arrive.
Yes, yeah. Thanks. There's a lot of moving parts for sure.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Hurd? Okay, thank you for your update. Moving on to the Desert Claim Wind Power Project, Ms. Moon.
Good afternoon, Council Chair Drew and members of the council. For the record, this is Amy Moon providing an update on the Desert Claim project. EFSEC staff continue to coordinate with Desert Claim. However, currently there are no project updates.
Thank you. Now we're moving on to Horse Heaven Wind Farm with a SEPA update. Ms. Moon.
Good afternoon, Council Chair Drew and council members. Once again, this is Amy Moon providing an update on the Horse Heaven Wind project. EFSEC staff wants to provide the council with an update on the Horse Heaven Wind project draft environmental impact statement, or DEIS, schedule. We have been working closely with our contractor, Golder, to establish a schedule that includes time for data collection, analysis of potential adverse environmental impacts, mitigation analysis for each element of the environment, and cumulative impacts. Preparation of the schedule included fact-finding tasks and establishing an annotated table of contents, which is the backbone of the DEIS. 3 data requests were submitted to the applicant to clarify information included in the application, which included questions on each element of the environment. Most of the data requests have been fulfilled. However, some visual aesthetic data requests and air emission estimates are pending, with anticipated completion in October. At this time, the draft environmental impact statement is scheduled to be issued for public comment in mid-May of 2022. EFSEC staff anticipate a minimum 30-day public comment period. This working schedule was developed with several assumptions, and updates to the schedule may need to be made as the DEIS process evolves. The schedule is driven by the multiple complex options presented within the application over a large footprint and high public interest. Adjudication hearings will follow the public comment period to give agencies, tribal governments, and the public time to review the DEIS information prior to adjudication. EFSEC staff are actively working with Judge Torum to schedule the adjudication. The issuance schedule for the final EIS, or FEIS, will be dependent on the number and content of comments received. The issuance of the FEIS is anticipated no sooner than the end of 2022. As work progresses on the DEIS, we will be able to assess the assumptions made to develop the working schedule and be able to provide an update on the schedule by February of 2022. Does the council have any questions?
Are there any questions for Ms. Moon? Thank you very much for the thorough update as usual.
You're welcome.
We are now moving on to the Goose Prairie Solar Project for a project update and staff recommendation. Mr. Overton.
Thank you. Again, this is Kyle Overton, the site specialist working on the Goose Prairie Solar Project application. So in front of the council today is a draft site certification agreement and a draft recommendation report to the governor. And so to do a brief recap here, in January 2021, EFSEC received an application for site certification, or ASC, for the Goose Prairie Solar Project. And in conjunction with that, an application for consideration under expedited processing was also received. On August 6th, the council voted to approve the request for expedited processing after a mitigated determination of non-significance was issued on July 30th, and a decision on land use consistency was made on June 15th. On September 27th, a public comment meeting was held to receive public comment relating to conditional use criteria. And then after this meeting, EFSEC staff developed a draft site certification agreement and associated recommendation to the governor for the EFSEC Council's consideration. WAC 463-43-80 requires the council to make a recommendation to the governor within 60 days of approving expedited processing. This deadline was extended to October 31st. Once the council has made the recommendation under WAC 463-64-030, the governor's office would have 60 days to take one of three actions: approval of the application and executing the draft SEA, reject the application, or direct council to reconsider certain aspects of the draft SEA. If the council chooses to approve the draft SEA and recommendation at this meeting, EFSEC staff anticipate transmitting the documents to the governor's office on October 20th, and with the 60-day review timeline to run through December 19th. At this time, staff would like to request the council take action to approve the draft recommendation report, which recommends approval of the Goose Prairie project, and also approve the draft site certification agreement. Are there any questions?
Council members, you have received the draft certification agreements and the order recommending the Goose Prairie Solar Project to be approved. Are there questions about the documents that you have received? Or any clarification needed or questions for the staff? I myself thought it was very thorough and well prepared, so I was pleased with the package that we received. Is there then a motion to approve the draft recommendation to the governor and the draft site certification agreements and recommend approval of the Goose Prairie Solar Project?
Rob Dangle. I move that we approve the staff draft recommendation to the governor and draft site certification agreements and recommend approval of the Goose Prairie Solar Project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Kate Kelly, second.
Thanks. Any comments or discussion about the project?
This is Stacy Brewster. I'd like to echo Chair Drew, your statement. Thank you to the staff for all of the well-prepared information and all the work you've done on this.
Thank you. Any other comments?
This is Rob Dangle. I will just note that this was a very well put together, straightforward project with proper mitigation given its scope. So kudos to staff.
Thank you. One Energy. Kudos to One Energy. Oh, and you said to staff and also to One Energy Renewables for their work on it. I am adding. Sorry about that. Any other comments? Well, I do know that this has been a project that, as others have said, as well, was well put together, and also a lot of work put in by staff as well as the agencies, particularly Fish and Wildlife, and the applicant to resolve issues and to work through issues throughout the process. So I'm very pleased to ask for a roll call vote on this motion for the recommendation to be forwarded to the governor for approval of the Goose Prairie Solar Project. Ms. Owen.
Department of Commerce. Department of Commerce.
Aye.
Department of Ecology.
Aye.
Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Aye.
Department of Natural Resources.
Aye.
Utilities and Transportation Commission.
Aye.
Department of Transportation.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you. That Looks like a unanimous recommendation to me. Thanks again, everyone, for your work. We have a couple other items for the good of the order, or perhaps just additional items on our agenda. And we do have a new project that has been submitted to us for review, and that is Badger Mountain, and Sean Chisholm will tell us a little bit about it and what the schedule is. Mr. Chisholm.
Hello, Chair Drew and respected members of the council. For the record, this is Sean Chisholm, Site Specialist of the Badger Mountain Solar Project. I just wanted to say that we have received an application for Badger Mountain Solar Project October 7th of 2021. The application can be found at the EFSEC website. Staff are beginning to review and work on establishing coordination with agencies and other parties.
Thank you. And I know already that Ms. Owens is looking for a time where we can schedule the public informational meeting and land use hearing, and she has been polling members, and we will be getting back to you in a short time about scheduling that next meeting as well. Moving on to the second quarter cost allocation, Ms. Bumpus.
Good afternoon, Chair Drew and council members. Thank you very much. For the record, this is Sonia Bumpus. My only update for you today is just on the second quarter fiscal year 2022 non-direct cost allocations. So I'll just read these off very quickly here. For Kittitas Valley Wind Power Project, 5%. For Wild Horse Wind Project, 5%. Columbia Generating Station, 26%. Columbia Solar, 11%. WNP1, 3%. Whistling Ridge, 3%. Grays Harbor 1 and 2, 9%. Chehalis Generation Project, 10%. Goose Prairie Solar, 7%. Horse Heaven Wind Farm Project, 12%. And our new Badger Mountain Project, 6%. And that concludes my update on the non-direct cost allocation.
Thank you. With that, our meeting for today is adjourned. Thank you all for your participation.